Are Terry and Susan also muted?
They have to be disconnected from the audio.
Are they still getting feedback?
Martha, we can hear you guys.
Yes,
so
Terry.
we're going to start the meeting.
All right, I think we're good. Cool.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order this October 24th meeting of the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair Lavanino. For the roll call, Directors Williams, Capps,
Hi. Here. I mean,
Hartman, here, Nelson,
Here.
Osborne, Infante,
Here.
Julian,
Here.
King,
Here.
Patino,
here.
Perotti,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Rouse,
Here.
and Chair Lavanino.
I'm here. If you could all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now the time of the meeting is for public comment. Now this is only for items that are not on today's agenda. So if you're, I think most of our people here are for the item that's coming up later regarding food vending operations. So if that's what you want to speak about, you'll have a chance to speak in a moment. But this is for anything that's not on today's agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
Chair Lavanino, we have no requests in person or online.
Okay. So also, I think this would be a good time for us to introduce Lorena Ortiz Schneider. Are you here? Yes. So would you like to come up for just a second? So Lorena is going to be our translator right there at that microphone. And before we get the meeting fully going, if you could just let folks know what's available in translation services and what you're going to be able to do today for them.
Sure. Buenos días a todos. Somos las intérpretes acá, yo y Rosalba en la esquina. Si necesitan interpretación al español, por favor acérquense. Les vamos a dar unos auriculares y el transmisor. La parte que tiene que ver con los vendedores ambulantes se va a celebrar un poco más adelante en esta sesión, pero si tienen algún otro comentario que no tenga que ver con ese tema, lo pueden hacer ahora. Si no, por favor, esperen hasta que toquemos ese tema más adelante para hacer sus preguntas. ¿De acuerdo? ¿Todo bien? ¿Quién necesita interpretación? Ok. ¿Quién más? Si quieren acercarse acá, les vamos a dar los transmisores.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll get to that item in just a few minutes, but right now we have the consent calendar. Are there any items that board members would like to pull off of the extensive consent? No?
Move for approval.
Anybody? Okay. Anybody in Santa Barbara? Hold on.
No one from Santa Barbara.
Just a second. Nobody in Santa Barbara? Do we have any requests to speak from the public on those items?
Chair Lavanino, we have no requests for public
Okay.
comment.
So we have a
I'm sorry.
motion from King.
Oh, can we wait
Second
one moment? We do have something from Santa Barbara. I just wanted to pull the, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I was distracted, the ADU.
Which one?
What item?
Q, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, so can we read Q into the record, please?
Certainly. 4Q, Accessory Dwelling Unit Owner Survey Report. Receive and file the Accessory Dwelling Unit Owners Survey Report.
Okay. Director Capps?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to thank the team for doing this and just didn't want this to go by with just a consent vote because I appreciate the study. I learned a lot from it. I think that there was public interest. I know there's a story in Newshawk. And so, again, nothing to debate or question. We did a good job of that, of the discussion in our subcommittees. But again, I firmly believe, as well as I know many of you share this, that ADUs are such an essential part of our housing crisis, and to have a better grasp of the fact for instance, that 67% of the ADUs are actually long-term housing, not just sort of temporary. Also, too, so many of them facilitate intergenerational family living, which is incredibly important as we move forward. We learned in a recent Board of Supervisors hearing that by 2030, 1 out of 4 of us will be 60. So we have an aging senior population. And so again, ADUs play a really important role in kind of keeping families together in a more affordable way. A lot of people are choosing those options, and that was also revealed in this survey. So thanks to the team. And I just wanted to shine a little light on a really interesting study and good work by SBCAG. So thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion from Director King and a second from Director Patino. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Director Williams? Capps?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Osborne? Infante?
Aye.
Julian?
Aye.
King?
Aye.
Patino?
Aye.
Perotti?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Rouse?
Aye.
And Chair Lavanino.
Aye.
Motion passes 11-0.
Okay, that takes us to our. I'm sorry, that takes us to our review and discussion action items. We'll use a little chair prerogative here and flip the two so that we can address the food vendors first. So we'll take up item 5B first. So Madam Clerk, can you read that into the record?
Certainly. Item 5B, receive a presentation from SBCAG Director Hartman and Vice Chair Rouse on unlawful roadside and sidewalk food vending operations occurring countywide and discuss possible next steps among the county and cities in coordination to mitigate unintended consequences.
Okay, I'll give you a few seconds to set up because I did surprise you, it looks like, with moving that forward. Yeah.
Randy and Joan are going to start it.
Okay.
Mayor Rouse and Supervisor.
Directors Hartman and Rouse. You guys want to kick this off?
Yeah. Took him 14 years.
Well,
5B.
I first of all want to thank SBCAG for giving us this opportunity to discuss this really important item. It's a very high concern for my constituents in the 3rd District. And then, as we learned, it's an issue throughout the cities and other areas in the county. And what's especially concerning is that the unlawful food vending along roadsides really hurts the very people that the legislature wanted to help. People who are permitted in their food carts, or people who are permitted with their food trucks or brick and mortar operations. And so what we have found is that these roadside food vending, really pop-up restaurants, are coming from Los Angeles, and they're using people who are not being well paid. They don't have employment protections, and the food itself is not refrigerated or subject to any environmental health requirements and permits. Our environmental health department has been out trying and actually citing these operations repeatedly. This has become a really difficult issue for them because once they issue the citation, there's no real way for them to follow up. And this is going to take a concerted effort across jurisdictions and across county departments. And so I'm so grateful to Mayor Rouse, who shares my pain on this, and we've worked together, and I'll let him make a few comments before staff goes forward.
Yeah, thank you, Director Hartman. I do appreciate the cooperation on this. It is a big concern in the city of Santa Barbara as well. I've also been in touch with some of our representatives in Sacramento. They have issues all over the state, particularly in the larger urban areas. The unfair competition, the issues of public safety, certainly the issues of public health. potential labor violations that we are investigating as we speak, environmental issues when it comes to the disposal of waste products and grease in our storm drains. So our enforcement team includes Barbara Anderson, who will be online remotely with us as well, who leads our team down in Santa Barbara. We have Renee Eiler here, who's our representative for the city with our assistant city administrator. I'd like to thank also Gina Fisher for her work on getting the slides together for this presentation. And with that, we'll go right ahead. Thank you.
Good morning. Is that? In 2018, there we go.
There we go.
In 2018, Senate Bill 946, authored by then State Senator Ricardo Lara, was passed with the goal of empowering sidewalk vendors, particularly those operating within the informal economy. The bill emerged from organized advocacy efforts in Los Angeles, where street vendors were frequently penalized by law enforcement for operating without permits. This led to the decriminalization of sidewalk vending in Los Angeles by the Los Angeles City Council in 2017. SB 946 subsequently extended these protections statewide, preventing the imposition of criminal penalties for sidewalk vendors and replacing them with administrative fines. The bill was widely seen as a safeguard for low-income and immigrant communities, particularly in the wake of federal immigration efforts ongoing at that time that targeted the prioritization of deportation of undocumented individuals who could have had even relatively minor criminal offenses, which could have been from things like misdemeanors for sidewalk vending. However, while SB 946 removed the threat of criminal penalties, it has also made it difficult for local jurisdictions to enforce regulations limiting sidewalk vending. In fact, a person being cited for a violation related to sidewalk or roadside vending may legally refuse to provide identification to the citing agency, and public health can illustrate that further in the presentation. In light of the passage of SB 946, local authorities have the opportunity to update their codes to reflect some time, place, or manner restrictions on sidewalk vending. But by and large, local jurisdictions no longer have the ability to significantly restrict, limit, or deny vendors from operating or add barriers to the permitting process. Local jurisdictions can define or limit hours of operation or limit vending near farmers markets or special event areas, and can require a permit or license to operate, and vendors are required to comply with ADA laws. SB 946 meant local jurisdictions cannot directly or indirectly ban sidewalk or roadside vending. If a vendor is permitted, jurisdictions cannot cap the number of vendors, cannot restrict vending to certain locations, and cannot stop vending from occurring in parks unless there is a concessionaire agreement, and can only impose vending restrictions if there is a justifiable restriction made for health, safety, or welfare considerations. As we are seeing throughout our county and statewide, many vendors have emerged unpermitted, knowing that the most consequence they face is a small administrative fine, therefore choosing to ignore local and state regulations. As a result, there has been widespread noncompliance with vendor programs intended to ensure health, safety, and competition. Local governments, like the League of California Cities and the California Association of Counties, were opposed to SB 946 for stripping local jurisdictions of meaningful enforcement tools, and noted that administrative fines are often too weak of a deterrent for unpermitted vending operations. After the passage of SB 946, sidewalk vendors wanting to sell low-risk food items were still required to be permitted by environmental health services. But some felt that those permitting requirements posed too much of a burden. So in response to the lack of vendors obtaining EHS certifications or permits, the legislature responded. Introducing Senate Bill 972. Senate Bill 972 was passed in 2022 to modernize the California Retail Food Code, or CAL Code, and simplify the permitting process for sidewalk vendors who want to sell low-risk food items. Sidewalk food vendors, who were now legalized under SB 946, were not complying with the provisions of CAL Code and were therefore unable to obtain permits from their local health departments to sell food legally. So the goal of SB 972 was to address the barriers vendors faced under long ago established food safety requirements, such as equipment standards that were designed for food truck operations, but were not applicable to food cart vendors. By easing these health code permitting requirements, SB 972 aimed to further open economic opportunities for low-income vendors and improve public health through better compliance. Unfortunately, despite these reforms, SB 946 coupled with SB 972 have largely failed to solve the problem. While it simplified the food handling permit process, few vendors have bothered to go through the legal steps to obtain necessary permits. In fact, in Santa Barbara County, and I would defer to my colleague on this, only 2 vendors have gone through the mobile food cart permit process with Environmental Health Services, which is the permitting agency for both cities and the county for food vending and food safety. 1 vendor was permitted for selling cut fruit, and 1 was for selling prepackaged ice cream, despite multilingual outreach efforts by at least 2 cities, and perhaps more, and the county. The reason for such noncompliance is simple. Without meaningful penalties for noncompliance, there is little incentive for vendors to adhere to the new rules. Vendors continue to operate outside the system, knowing that at worst, enforcement is limited to small fines. The combined effect of SB 946 and SB 972 has left local governments in a difficult position. Without the ability to meaningfully enforce regulations, unpermitted and potentially unsafe food vending continues to proliferate. This situation calls for a coordinated response among local jurisdictions, both the cities and the county, to create a unified strategy that balances the rights of vendors with the need to protect public health and safety. Collaboration is essential to ensure that the original intent of these laws is realized while addressing the real-world consequences that have emerged. I will now turn the presentation over to my colleague, Lars Seifert, the Director of County Environmental Health Services.
Good morning. Thank you, Gina. With environmental health, if we can go to the next slide, please. I just want to touch on a little bit of the what we're seeing out there and how this has impacted food safety in our community. One of the things that we're now seeing and we have seen is because while there's a pathway on SB 972 to bring people into the system to get permitted to make sure that they're handling food safety correctly, and also other programs that we've implemented countywide, such as like microenterprise home kitchen operations, there's a lot of intent to try to get a pathway to compliance and provide a fair business playing field for those people that want to do things under permit and do them safely in our community. So there's a lot of effort that's gone into this. However, SB 972 has inadvertently created a situation where we've had a proliferation of roadside and sidewalk vendors that are selling food, and often we're seeing food safety concerns, and I just want to highlight a couple of those today. An example shown here, basically there's, we often seen that there's rice or other potentially hazardous foods like tamales and beans that are often carried in coolers. They're brought from out of area. There's unknown sources. We don't know where the food has been prepared or whether it was done safely to begin with, but then it's not held within a temperature that prevents bacteria from growing. So we're seeing basically these foods that are potential for foodborne illnesses to be present and also not temperature controlled. We're also seeing things like in this picture on the right side, El Pastor meat being held in a 5-gallon dirty plastic bucket. So things that we would not see in a permitted mobile food truck or restaurant. And if we did see them in those settings, we would basically have ways and opportunities to ensure that they're handling these foods safely. We have and this is just two examples of what we're seeing. There's typically no hand washing, there's no utensil washing, there's no restrooms for the employees that are, or the individuals that are working at these booths, and just generally a lot of food safety violations, which we document when we go out to do inspections at these facilities. Again, this is difficult for environmental health services at the county because a lot of times they're popping up in different locations. They're not within your typical business hours. So we actually send out teams, bilingual teams, typically after hours on weekends. We gather information and intelligence as far as where they're setting up, so we can try to be out there before they set up. When we try to coordinate with our local city and other code enforcement agencies. We typically are trying to get law enforcement standby for potential security when we go out, because oftentimes this is, again, it's remote locations maybe. We don't necessarily know where our, what we're going to get into as far as the situation. And so basically when we go out, we are then limited, again, by SB 972 to issue a notice of violation on our first visit to these roadside pop-up stands. As you can see by this notice of violation, we're very limited with the information that we can get. As highlighted here, basically the business owner operator address not provided. We're seeing refusals to even acknowledge the notice of violation. We're spending a lot of time with the staff that we have, and I know that cities are facing the same situation, where we actually are waiting until we direct a cessation of operations and for them to shut down, but we're stuck waiting for them to shut down. And then the next slide here is, you'll see an illustration. We're seeing more and more, if you can go to the next slide. Oh, there we go. This is basically the same evening the operator has set back up when we've come back around, and we had to issue another notice of violation and shut them down again. So we're facing operators that know that our enforcement provisions are limited. We've had some success with multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency responses, but we're facing some real significant shortfalls as far as our enforcement ability and ability to identify, even if there was a foodborne illness that we were investigating, where that food came from, who we would talk to, how would we get a hold of them to try to identify who else might have been affected. So basically our core public health function as far as, identifying, eliminating potential foodborne illness outbreaks is really challenged by this process right now.
I believe Director Rouse has a question.
Quick question, Mr. Seifert. So in this situation, and one of the issues is the comparison between these pop-up vendors and, of course, a licensed brick and mortar place. In the situation, if you walked into a brick and mortar place and saw these violations and said, everything is unsafe, what would the action be versus what the action is on the roadside food stand? Because you're saying you're powerless under the law. This person on that notification refused to cease, but it was a brick and mortar place. What would be would there be a difference in your action?
Yeah, the California Retail Food Code does provide a lot of enforcement provisions for a permitted food facility, such as a mobile food truck or a brick and mortar restaurant. If there were major food risk violations, we could direct closure of that facility until those are corrected. We would also be able to, if there was a failure to close or a refusal to close, there are misdemeanor provisions in the Health and Safety Code. We're also basically allowed or have the authority under California State Health and Safety Code to either suspend or revoke the health permit for that facility. So effectively shutting the business down for a period of time or permanently if there was not the response that we needed to keep food safe.
And likewise, if you walked in a brick and mortar place that was not licensed at all but performing this kind of service, would you be able to do the same kind of circumstances? And I'm saying that because I'm assuming a lot of the speakers here are in fact brick and mortar operators, and they're wondering where the equity is.
Right now, with the California Health and Safety Code, it does maintain the misdemeanor provisions and the authority of the health agency to direct closure for, even if it was an unpermitted brick and mortar facility, we would have that ability. It's not a sidewalk vendor, which is basically what, in this case, SB 972 limited the enforcement capabilities of the Environmental Health Agency.
Thank you.
Director Hartman.
I just wanted to underscore, so we have micro enterprise home kitchens, and that was designed with the same intent as this legislation, to allow small businesses without a lot of capital to get a foothold in this economy. And could you describe what they're subject to? Because they have enforcement provisions. And then you alluded to this, but food trucks, again, another way for people to get a leg up in this economy. How your authority differs and how they would have to respond differently.
Director Hartman, thank you for the question. And yeah, to touch on microenterprise home kitchen operations, it has created a pathway of permitting that basically allows an individual in a home to be able to set up a limited food preparation sort of restaurant to be able to serve neighbors, other customers, people in their community that need that food. And basically that has been a relatively successful program. We have about 35 roughly micro enterprise home kitchen operations in the county, and we still are trying to promote that program. For those, they are permitted and they get inspected similar to a brick and mortar facility. Same thing with a mobile food truck. There's a permitting process, there's a plan review process to make sure that they have a kitchen or storage and prep ways of preparing that food that's safe before they're allowed to operate. And both the mobile food truck provisions, microenterprise home kitchen operations, and brick and mortar facilities, they all operate under that same requirement to make sure that they're set up to be able to prepare food safely, and then also ongoing oversight to make sure that they continue to do that. There are also food safety certifications that they're required to obtain to make sure that they understand basic food safety as part of their operation.
And just to follow up, and I hope you're the right one to answer this, but the roadside food vending tends to be people from out of county, and that creates additional enforcement difficulties, whereas the micro enterprise and food trucks are local. So we've got people who are out of county coming in, competing with local people who are going by the rules. And could you just describe the additional enforcement headaches that creates?
I think I will defer some of the enforcement headaches to describe that process with the City of Santa Barbara and City of Santa Maria, perhaps, but we are anecdotally seeing more and documenting by our notice of violations that we're issuing an indication that most of these or many of these are outside vendors that are entering the area. Again, not having their contact information, not being able to issue even the administrative fine, who do you issue it to? And how would you enforce if they did not pay that or can't come in to even talk to us? So we're having a real difficulty with being able to track down the responsible entity to be able to walk them through what they can do and how they would do it safely. That education piece is very difficult with out-of-area vendors that we don't have a contact to. So.
Just to add on quickly, in the City of Santa Barbara, we have filed a number of misdemeanor violations, and they are in fact not from our county.
Yeah.
Okay. Here are public safety concerns that pertain to fire, open flame, propane use, and other hazardous materials. These photos are all from the 3rd District in the Santa Ynez Valley, which has an especially high fire risk. The upper right photo is of discarded and littered propane hoses and nozzles on dry brush. The bottom right is a gas can sitting among dry brush. The bottom, the city of Santa Barbara, and I don't want to steal their thunder, has had to do enforcement on open flame trompo-like flames that have been set up on the grounds of gas stations. Other public safety concerns. Roadside and traffic safety, ADA encroachments. This photo illustrates public safety concerns pertaining to roadside and traffic safety. Here is a photo from Highway 246 in the Santa Ynez Valley. This activity also occurs on Highway 154. Both roadways are state agency, they're Caltrans jurisdiction, and the city of Santa Barbara also, and we have other pictures, has had challenges with a lot of sidewalk or ADA intrusive setups. But pedestrians on Highway 246 and crossing Highway 154 are of serious concern. Other concerns. Other concerns include the illegal dumping of grease straight into gutters and storm drains in the city of Santa Barbara, as shown by the bottom middle and right photos. And the bottom left photo is the morning after nearly daily dumping on Highway 246 in Solvang, Santa Ynez. And I believe we may have a public commenter here today who has a sample of what that soil looks like. The upper photo depicts the very bright lights off Highway 154 in the Santa Ynez Valley, which is distracting. A business would never be permitted to have such bright lights off the highway there. And significantly damaged bike path in Santa Barbara is the victim of illegal grease dumping on transportation paths. Other concerns include unfair business practices, labor, and tax collection issues. Here is a photo of a vendor setting up right outside of a permitted and regulated business in the city of Santa Barbara. We have a separate slideshow to integrate after this from City of Santa Maria that also experiences this. And the city of Santa Barbara has gathered information, and I can let them speak to that further, that frontline workers may be working without proper compensation and may be, in fact, as newly arrived immigrants to this country, are working in a very underground and exploitive economy. So all that to say that this activity does not qualify as a certified mobile food operation. It's to bring home the point that these operations don't qualify under the intent of the state law, but that with the lack of meaningful enforcement tools available, these types of operations are very hard to rein in. And so I'll turn it over to the city of Santa Barbara.
Gina, Director Nelson has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. I meant to ask this when Mr. Seifert was discussing some of the enforcement issues. So I hate to take us back there for a moment, but I'm going to. So if a restaurant, I think there was a comparison that if a restaurant was, the permit was suspended, but then they stayed open, they just opened back up the doors, everybody, public health left, the cops left, fire left, and they just opened up the doors. Is there eventually some type of enforcement where law enforcement is engaged, or where there's somebody's eventually arrested, or is there sometimes a point when there's confiscation of materials, or where we board up and lock things? I mean, how does that all work? Is there eventually that with a brick and mortar, and then eventually I'm going to obviously ask, well, then why doesn't that roll down to something like this? So if you could address that.
Thank you, Director Nelson. The California Health and Safety Code does provide a misdemeanor provision for failure to follow a direct health officer order, which is basically the authority that environmental health has under the California Retail Food Code. So basically, if we got to the point where we directed closure and they refused to do that, that would be something that we would work with the DA's office to potentially enforce as a misdemeanor provision under state law.
And that would be deployed in a brick and mortar situation. Is that something that's been deployed when it comes to these units?
No, the specific section in SB 972 actually takes basically that provision specifically out of play when it comes to sidewalk vending and compact mobile food operations.
Okay. And I guess the question is, and I think that last slide that Ms. Fisher had was that this isn't that, right? I mean, is that the conclusion that we're going to get to? So I won't jump to the conclusion, but hopefully. Okay. Is there any, so that's the misdemeanor piece. Is there ever anything within that for confiscation of equipment, or is that something that ultimately happens?
Yes, Director Nelson, we do have impound authority for food and equipment that is applicable in the brick and mortar stores as well as mobile food trucks. That does apply here. And the challenge of it is basically there's a 30-day hold time for due processing. So basically there's some limitations on logistics as far as being able to impound unsafe or potentially unsafe food. Environmental health in that instance would have to hold that food for up to 30 days and move to a hearing for disposition. The same applies. We can do a red tag on equipment in a brick and mortar facility. We could potentially extend that to, and some jurisdictions have, however, they've not found it to be particularly effective for roadside vendors. Both food and equipment typically ends up being replaced very quickly, and they're back up in operation. So that is something that is a possibility, and we do have an impound policy that basically outlines the process for that. However, we've not utilized it for this sort of situation because we find that basically shutting them down, telling them to pack up and leave for the night is more effective, at least at this point.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'm going to have more comments as we get a little bit further into the presentation. It sounds like some of these things might be addressed, but I did want to take the opportunity just to say how much I appreciate this being a forum for this discussion since it is cross-jurisdictional, and I really want to thank Directors Hartman and Rouse for taking the leadership on this and your staff. So looking forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Director King?
Yes, sir. What is that impound authority? What is that in SB 972 or is it a county? What's the section where we could say?
It's under the California Health and Safety Code or the California Retail Food Code. I can get that to you later specifically if you'd like. I have Cal Code available, but I don't have it here at the podium with me. So I can certainly get that to you.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. I'm Renee Irely, Assistant City Administrator for Santa Barbara, and we wanted to share a bit of our experience that we've been having with the food vendors and working in great partnership with health and safety. We've really appreciated the effort. Just as a little bit of background, we did update our sidewalk vending ordinance in 2022 to be in alignment with the state law. And in May of 2023, because we were getting so many complaints around the illegal vending, we formalized a task force and we have an enforcement team attached to this work. So I'll talk through that a little bit and some of the approaches that we've taken to try to handle this as best we could. So we're definitely, as you saw earlier, seeing a lot of environmental impacts from this as well. Our public works teams are working regularly to address a lot of the illegal grease dumping on newly paved multi-purpose pathways, down storm drains, taking a lot of significant efforts. And we are also hearing from our businesses, both our mobile food trucks and our brick and mortar, that anywhere from like 20 to 30% of their revenue is being lost when they're having these illegal vendors set up in front of them. We definitely have reports of them relocating or even shutting down because their businesses have just been wiped out by them. We, over the past 2 seasons, have had a total of 30 enforcement team operations, and as you can imagine, this is very labor intensive. We have anywhere from 4 to 6 staff at the time, and that's not including when we have the county joining us as well. So that is staff out of our city administrator's office, fire inspector, code enforcement, bilingual staff, and a backup of public safety as well. Our enforcement teams are regularly met with, frankly, like not just hostile vendors, but customers as well. because they don't understand why the vendors are being shut down. So it can create quite a dynamic experience for the teams that are going out. It takes anywhere on the nights that they go out to at least 3 or 4 hours. And as you've heard, like they may shut down and then move and set up again in the same night. We've estimated that we would need to have an enforcement team out at least 4 or 5 nights a week to make any sort of dent in the numbers that we're seeing in the city of Santa Barbara. We've, as I said, over the course of the 2 years so far, have had 30 enforcement operations. Out of that, as difficult as it is to collect information on the operators to be able to move forward with prosecutions, we have had 30 enforcements so far and that entailed about 65 or 66 defendants so far. And so our city attorney is handling that, and this is mainly through violations of fire code. So it's not through health and public safety. It's because of open flames, in and near, and then operating in and near brick and mortar. And so that's been our tactic so far to try to make some sort of small dent in this. Again, enforcement is incredibly challenging and resource intensive. I mean, I hate to put a direct number on that, but if we were looking at that team operating full time in the city of Santa Barbara, that's at least $500,000 to $750,000 a year to be able to be addressing this. So we certainly welcome this conversation about how to work collaboratively to get more of a handle on this, to at least understand the nature and extensiveness of this across the county, and to be able to share information around who's operating where, because I think that all of that helps us build these enforcement cases. Thank you.
This was to be sort of the kickoff for the dialogue, the conversation, but the city of Santa Maria has a separate set of slides. And so I don't know, Mayor Patino, is there someone from the city who's going to, oh, great. Here's the mouse. Yeah, come on. I can swap. Okay. Are you counting?
Whoops. Good morning. My name is Dawn Palacios. I'm the Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Santa Maria. We're experiencing the same things as they are in Santa Barbara. As you can see, we have food safety and sanitation concerns. Beans, meat is being left out, dirty cutting boards, and there's propane tanks being used, and other hazardous materials, open flames, creating a lot of hazards. Where did it go? There we go. And also ADA encroachments, setting up on the sidewalks. So also when they are dumping the grease, it's right next to the gutter, so it's going into the storm drains. Therefore, city streets departments having to clean that up, or utilities. And so blocking the sidewalk, setting up their tents, creating problems in the street, setting up. So the bottom one is a hot dog vendor that was setting up in the street right in front of another business. And also on the roadside, selling juices on the top right, creating traffic hazards. People are pulling off onto the side of the road and also blocking part of the lanes and making it unsafe. And this was a vendor on the bottom left. We were able to shut them down as they were setting up. They're right in front of a restaurant. And we did get word that they set up just a couple of hours later after shutting down. And then the top one is also the hot dog cart that was out in the street. And so making it unfair for businesses, making it unsafe, blocking the street, sidewalks. in this photo right here, this was just taken this week, and speaking with the grease that's left behind, meat particles, a horrible stench, and so they're setting up again in Santa Maria. So we're having to gather our enforcement team, which is 1 or 2 code enforcement officers, a fire inspector, trying to get a police officer also for safety. And we do have the Santa Barbara County Health Department. They're going to be giving us 2 representatives this week to address the different vendors that are setting up. So now Vons is going to be held responsible in cleaning up this mess, as we don't know who was there and running the business for the taco vendors. And it's extremely hard to, as you were talking about, with enforcement, they don't want to give an ID. They won't give any information on who they work for. We've been successful on being able to, if they're running, if they have their vehicles there, so we will cite the vehicle owner. Sometimes those citations are paid, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they just go to collections, but holding them accountable for violations like this, dumping the grease and meat, we can't get anyone to get those cleaned up. And we're not able to criminally cite, so it makes it very, very difficult for enforcement. And here's another one. We see a lot of this too, is selling food out of trunks. This is tamale. We've been seeing ceviche being sold out of a trunk, and people are buying it. We try and provide that education to the different businesses, the different people. We've put out different information on YouTube about health and safety, and so, but people still are buying the food, so it's making it very hard, and very hard for the restaurant owners, the businesses, enforcement. So we try and work together the best we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And we can go back to just the last slide on the other. You can help me. And that's all that I have to.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Are there any questions before we get to public comment? I believe we have quite a bit of public comment, so why don't we move on to that then?
Do you want to start here first and then go to Santa Barbara?
Let's start in Santa Barbara first and then come back here.
We have no requests for public comment in Santa Barbara.
All right, so,
Let's check with online.
okay.
Anyone online want to provide public comment? Doesn't look like it. Okay.
Okay, so we're all here in Santa Maria. Awesome. Okay.
First speaker we have is Tracy Beard.
How many speakers do we have?
I think there's 9.
Okay, each will be given 3 minutes to speak.
I don't know if that works.
Are these tuna sandwiches you've had in your car for?
Actually, no, but maybe I could make more money doing that today. What I'm passing to you right now is the dirt from 246 and Refugio Road, where I live 1/4 mile away. We have a vending station that is there Tuesday through Sunday, every day. I'm here to speak for all the chambers today on behalf of unlawful, critical issues that are affecting the public health community. We kind of go through this. I'm just going to say, I kind of wrote a really nice speech that all my girls agreed to. Local nonprofits in the community are trying to pour wine, take care of doing coffee, doing items. They need to get a health department permit, you guys, like this, just for our nonprofits to show where they would want to show with their mission statement, anything like that. We're getting on a ridiculous level. Every chamber director, including myself, we have a food handling license and we all have an RSV license. We go through this on every permit we do for events. It's wrong what's happening. I'm going to say in the Santa Ynez High School example, unfood licensed trucks regularly operate across the street. It's a nuisance. Public health issue, unpermitted vendors, oversight, no guarantee of food or safety. More happy, we have legitimate abiding people that are here right now. Highway Tacos, local food vendor right across from Caesars in the parking lot. Took them over 6 months to get their permitting, and they do it correctly with all following the rules. But an unlicensed food vendor has set up right across the street from them. Our high school games are special events, and they're right there. We have in our high school, our nonprofits are trying to make money, and they have to get all this from you guys, from the health department. Our health department, we're not doing our job. We're not giving them enough money to take care of what they should be doing. We've got to take responsibility. This did not happen by an accident. This happened from bad legislation from Sacramento that has come down. 972 micro kitchens, 30 meals a day, 50 a week, $50,000 a year. Those are the rules. We don't follow the rules. We don't allow people to help enforce the rules of regulating what has been created. This is an opportunity for all of you to look at everything in our community, what is happening, standardizing law enforcement. As we sit together as all chambers on calls, Ventura County, they confiscate the product and tow the car away. Do we hear that? They confiscate all the product. Lastly, the photos I've shown you, I sent up some yesterday. Gas pipeline, 21 feet from an open flame right in my community, ready to blow. Love it. I mean, that's not good public service. I'm sorry for what's happening right here. I know.
Tracy, that's your time.
I know. And I just want to say, lastly, on this.
No, that's not the way it works. I'm sorry. We have a big crowd today.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Tracy. You got your point across.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, one other thing. First off, we're going to close the roll for public comment, meaning if your name's already in, you're good to go. We're not going to add any more public commenters after that. And also, in our hearings, instead of clapping and booing or whatever, if you agree with her, this is good. Okay? All right. Next person.
Actually, I have Heidi and John Howe.
Hi. Yesterday, when I filled out my ballot, on the front were the candidates, but on the back, there were 10 state propositions that I was allowed to vote on. Okay? This 946 and 972 were never made available to us to vote on. It was backdoored in. And my question is, why do you keep giving it credit? We didn't vote on it. We don't want it. It's not beneficial. It's harmful to what is happening to our community, to our people that are law-abiding. So why are you giving it all this momentum and saying, oh, well, we have to work within those parameters? This came out of Los Angeles. If Los Angeles and their allegiance to the, vendors, the illegals, let them stay there. We moved to Santa Ynez because of where we live and the lifestyle that we have. And we respect our neighbors, and our neighbors respect us. And we follow the guidelines of the law. We have gone to the Santa Ynez Fire Department, nothing they can do. The police, nothing they can do. Why? I would like those answers, please. Anytime.
Anytime, yeah. What are you going to do about it?
Okay, so this is public comment. This isn't back and forth. So that's what this hearing's all about. So you provide public comment, and then there'll be comments afterwards.
And I hope that I do hear from any of you. Thank you.
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
Next speaker is Jason, I can't read the last name, of La Villa Restaurant. Okay, sorry.
Hi, good morning. Today I'm referring to the issue of the growing concern within our community the presence and impact of illegal street vendors. It's not just about regulation, it's about the safety and fairness and the well-being of our community as a whole. Safety concerns. Illegal street vendors often do not adhere to the same safety standards and regulations that the brick and mortars do. 2, economic impact on licensed businesses. Legal businesses like ours invest in time and resources to comply with all regulations, face unfair competition from vendors who do not bear the same costs and responsibilities. This undermines the economic stability of our local and small businesses and discourages lawful entrepreneurship. Right here, sorry. We need more county enforcement. We need more vendor support programs, and then community engagement between the county. And we need more public awareness campaigns to educate the community on what needs to be done. And that's all.
Thank you.
Chair Lavanino.
Yes.
May I make a comment? Could you please ask them to give their name and where they're from? Because I didn't know where Jason was from.
Got it.
So.
Where?
Where? Okay, thank you.
Okay, next week, and I want to apologize if I mispronounce everyone's last names, because I can't read a lot of it, I'm sorry. So the next one is Magali Villanueva.
Good morning, everyone. I want to first thank the directors and your staff for this presentation. I hope that you all can now see that this is a major problem. It's a problem that has gotten out of control. And what you guys are talking about, just the street vendors, is just a small piece of the problems that we are facing as small business owners. Right now, we're only talking about the street vendors, but it's also the taco trucks that are here in town. Yes, they have permits, but I think what the problem is that we do not have enough staff to enforce these laws. I talk to code enforcement, I talk to health department, I talk to police, and they all start pointing fingers. Oh, well, we need this person's help. We need this person's help. I think what needs to be done is that people need to start working together. They fill out a health department application. It says, what are your hours of operation? They put their times, but code enforcement tells them that they have to move every 30 and 90 minutes. So these departments are contradicting each other. I think what we need to do is start working together so we could get this problem fixed. I know you mentioned in your presentation that you need to go out at least 4 to 5 times a week. Well, I know that times are changing. Social media is big. There's no need to leave the office anymore. You go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, you see these businesses, hours of operations, you see where they're at. Yes, this is a big problem, but we need to start working smarter and how we can help fix this problem. So I hope that with these presentations and with the people that are speaking, you guys see how big of a problem this is for brick and mortar restaurants. And I hope that this is the start of a change, because we have 3 restaurants in town and it's hard. There's small business, flower shops, and other businesses that are going out of business because of people that are doing these illegal street vending. So I hope that you guys really take in the information, you guys get together, and you guys can even take it up to state, wherever you guys need to take it, but I hope that this is something that you guys can help us with. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Efren Alvarez. Don't know the last name. I can't read it, I'm sorry.
Hello, everyone. My name is Efren Alvarez Ramos. I'm CEO of Efren's Mexican Restaurant, representing Efren Mexican Restaurant. Personally, I'm a little divided on the subject of we have today, because my father was someone who used to street vend way before we had a restaurant. So if it wasn't for that, he would never have the business. But ever since we started our restaurant, we have to abide by all the laws and all the stuff that the health department puts in front of us. Like when we've done events in Santa Barbara, we used to do the Pride event. And we have to get like 6 different permits just for that day. But it's to prevent, all the stuff that I didn't know was happening right now with all the people throwing the grease in the dirt, all the people, we don't know where the food's coming. We used to have employees who would steal our food and backdoor it and do caterings on the side. So you don't even know if the food and the product that they have has been, they're not taking it from another restaurant that they're working at. You don't know if they're taking it from a supermarket. You don't know if they're paying for it, which, most of the time they do pay for it. I'm not saying it happens everywhere, but we have had that happen in our own house. As for everything else, pretty much everything else has been said, so that's kind of all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Horacio Lopez.
I think
I don't speak English. That's fine?
that's great.
I speak in Spanish. Okay. Yo vengo representando a Taquería Guerrero.
Just a second. We're going to have somebody come up and translate for you, for us. So if you could speak just a little bit, let her translate, then speak a little bit more. We'll give you an extra minute. Go ahead.
Ok, buenos días. Mi nombre es Horacio López, vengo representando a Taquería Guerrero y bueno, con estos de las taquerías móviles y las taquerías callejeras, pues sí nos ha afectado bastante y pues esperemos que ustedes...
Sir, you have to just let her translate now. She can't remember it all.
Good morning, I am Horacio Lopez, and I'm here representing Taqueria Guerrero, and I just want to complain also about all the things that we're hearing about these illegal vendors.
Y bueno, pues esperemos que como restaurantero, estoy pidiendo, me imagino que con toda la comunidad, pidiendo de la ayuda de ustedes para que intervengan.
And as a restaurant owner, I would like to beg for your intervention to solve this problem.
Porque como restauranteros sabemos que tenemos muchos gastos en aseguranzas, en workers' comp, en utilidades y todo eso, pues sí nos ha afectado bastante.
As a restaurant owner, we do have a lot of expenses. We have insurance to pay, workers' comp, and others, and this issue has affected us deeply.
Y bueno, pues si pueden ayudarnos en nuestras peticiones, pues se los agradecería. Gracias.
And if you could please hear our petition, we will really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Señor López, ¿su negocio está aquí en Santa María? Sí. Gracias.
Next, I have Maria Valderrama.
En español. Okay. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Yuri. Vengo representando a Marisco Las Islitas aquí en Santa María. Las Islitas.
Las Islitas.
Islitas.
My name is Yuri, and I represent Mariscos Las Islitas here in Santa Maria.
Y vengo aquí alzando la voz en comunidad de todos aquí porque es algo que se ha vuelto un problema grande, tantos puestos que hay casi prácticamente en cada esquina.
And I'm here lifting my voice for pretty much everybody in my community because there are way too many of these street vendors practically on every corner.
Y es algo que sí nos está afectando, porque pues ahorita, aparte de que este año fue muy mal año, la economía ha estado pues inestable, sí ha sido algo que nos ha afectado en el negocio.
It's really affected our business. You know, the economy has been pretty difficult lately, so it's been affecting all of us in terms of our businesses.
Y algo que se me hace un poco injusto es desde que uno como restaurantero trata de ser uno todo conforme a la ley, tener los refrigeradores trabajando la comida a la temperatura y sin embargo vienen puestos de quién sabe dónde y ponen comidas en hieleras, en bandejas, no sabemos ni de dónde viene esa comida, cómo la procesan.
And, you know, we here, restaurant owners, we follow the laws. We comply with the regulations around refrigerating the foods, making sure that food is kept at the appropriate temperature. And here, these street vendors come from who knows where, and they set up shop and they have their food in coolers or on trays, and who knows where they're coming from or what it is that they're serving.
Mas, sin embargo, pasa uno en veces y ve gente y los negocios solos. Y dice, pues, ¿qué está pasando aquí? O sea, es algo que sí ocupamos de su ayuda, que nos escuchen y pongamos como ¿cómo les diré? Un control. Que si van a poner una lonchera, pues de perdido que pues tengan sus reglamentos conforme la ley, su higiene y pues que no se esté afectando tanto a la salud de la gente. Y también como negocios, pues sí se está porque están dando licencias para aquí, por acá, por allá. Y los más afectados son los negocios que están generando más gastos, pagan más renta, más empleados. Y sin embargo, en una lonchera, ¿qué pueden pagar? ¿Qué es lo que están? Sorry. Sorry.
Gracias. So basically, you know, we're seeing people coming to these places, and yet our restaurants are starting to become empty, really. So I'm asking for your help. I want more regulation, more enforcement of the regulations on these street vendors, these little lunch shacks that pop up places, and have them comply. I mean, we comply with everything. We comply with health and safety, with all of the regulations that affect our businesses. And we're seeing that these permits are being issued left, right, and center, and yet we're the ones who own restaurants, who have expenses, who have to pay taxes, who have to hire employees, and we have rent to pay. And so I'm really asking for your help to curb this situation.
Y es solo eso, de que nos escuchen y pongan pues ahora sí que cartas en el asunto y pues a que haya mejorías. Es lo que creo que queremos todos aquí, que se vean resultados.
So pretty much what I'm asking you is to please listen to us, to please improve the situation, to please monitor and enforce the situation, and improve everything for our communities.
Y creo que es todo por ahora. Muchas gracias. Gracias por escucharnos y dedicarnos este tiempo para podernos reunir todos aquí y pues hacer valer nuestra voz y que cuente nuestro comentario.
And so anyway, that's all. Thank you very much for listening to us, for holding this session here, and for inviting us here to speak our voice, and for hearing us, and for valuing us.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lourdes Luna.
Good morning. My name is Lourdes Luna, and I'm here representing my mom's business, Mariscos Ensenada, here in Santa Maria. So I know a lot has been said already, so I don't want to touch on the same subject, but I would like to also place focus on something that was said, that a lot of these brick and mortars have been here for a very long time, contributing to our community, creating employment for our community. And when these vendors that are not compliant, coming from out of the area, they are taking funds away from our communities, taking away employment opportunities that keeps funds local. And again, it is a very big problem. We understand it's a law, but like somebody said, it's not affecting communities in a positive way. It's only creating so many things that are out of control. But again, we would please like for you to hear our voices. And again, this is really negatively impacting our communities. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to touch on. One of the people from the restaurants, because of things being vended now on Facebook, alcohol was sold to a 12-year-old child because of all this out of control. So now we're having even alcohol sales to minors, which again, detrimental to our community. And that's all I like to say, because again, everything has been said, and we thank you so much for holding this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, and last public speaker, Ernesto Martinez.
Good morning to all of you.
Morning.
Thanks for being here and listen to us. Well, I'm also representing Mariscos Ensenada as a manager for Mariscos Ensenada for 27 years. I've been through all of this kind of situations. I just want to go back to a little bit to the health department. When you've been in business for 33 years, and like he mentioned, you can get shut down for some violations. And then we go back to this 972 when you can't do nothing to shut down a vendor on the street that is selling. I mean, when you say health, I believe you regard to health of the safety of the community. So where is the word health when you're allowing these people to sell all this illegal food? No temperature, no health, no, no regulations at all. I have had a lot of visits from the health department inspectors, from the fire department, from all the divisions in Santa Maria. So where are all these people now with the vendors? I think they should enforce a little harder, either fines or also these vendors have to have permission from someone to put their trucks there. What about the land, the owner of that land? Why don't they get fined also? Allowing these people to sit their makeshift restaurants. They charge some money, so the vendor's making money, the owner of that property is making money, and we're losing money. So I don't know if anyone else addressed this problem. Why don't you guys go after the owners of that land also? They can get fined, and they're not going to rent the place no more. So there's a lot of issues here that I think should be taken in consideration. Health department first. Why are you going to shut down a 33-year-old restaurant? You can't shut down a business, a mobile business. That's my main question. I don't know if someone can answer that to me, but I think it's not that hard.
Right.
So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And hopefully something could be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to bring it back to the board. Okay, staff, did you hear anything that?
I just, if there is one point to kind of emphasize, and I don't know if Director Hartman wants to further emphasize this point, I think the counties and cities have a whole range of challenges. One of the challenges in the 3rd District in particular is a lot of this is happening on state highways. So it's not our sidewalk to regulate versus in cities, they can regulate sidewalks a little bit better. I believe, not to put Director Nelson on the spot, but this popped up, you want to share, an Orchid on a county sidewalk. It's easier to say you can't be here for the ADA reasons and they shoo along. But one of the real challenges is when they pop up, we don't have jurisdiction. The sheriffs don't enforce on state highways.
Okay, let's bring it back for discussion. Director Rouse?
Yeah, I very much appreciate the testimony. I myself was a brick and mortar operator for almost 40 years in downtown Santa Barbara. So I know exactly what your points are. I know exactly the challenges you face and you have every day. And the unfair competition is really a big issue. It's a big issue in Santa Barbara. We also have, as Ms. Irely pointed out, it's very, very labor intensive. We don't need new rules and regulations. We actually just need to be able to enforce current regulations. On top of, we need to go after our state representatives about some of these regulations that were intended to give more opportunities to people, while at the same time they're stealing opportunities from people in our communities, because these are, in fact, remote predatory operations that are coming into our cities, and they're doing this. And I've been in very close touch with the president of the California Restaurant Association in Sacramento, because they're trying to do a statewide push for exactly the same reason, because they represent all of you operators out there. So code enforcement is a big deal. Code enforcement is a labor-intensive thing to do. And as Mr. Seifer can say, it's hard to even get out and do their mandate, which is I think, was it twice a year that you're supposed to be in brick and mortar operations? Is that, Mr. Seifer? Is that?
Yeah, generally at least twice a year for the higher risk facilities, we get out and
Right, and
that's
it's
the
hard
FDA
for them to
recommendation.
fulfill that, given the personnel that they have. It's hard for us to get out with the number of fire marshals we need to go out and enforce open flame, because you have food carts, food trucks, which are regulated and licensed normally, and then you also have these open food street cooking operations, which are, frankly, is kind of our top priority right now because the clear and present danger to the public. But going back to your concerns here, we understand the competition from both a business side and from the government side, because you guys are paying insurance and taxes and whatnot, and they are not. And so this is something that we are very concerned about. Thank you.
Director Hartman? Did you want to go around first? Okay. Well, I have to get out of here in a couple of minutes. I've got another meeting I got to get to. So I'll go ahead and do mine, then I'm going to pass it to the vice chair to finish off. Well, first off, I just want to thank everybody for being here, just showing up on a middle of the week in the afternoon. I know if you're running a business is not where you want to be. So thank you for being here. And I hope you understand we are trying to tackle something that crosses multi-jurisdictional lines. It's very difficult without the state's help on this. When somebody said, that's gave the SB number and that was made in Los Angeles, we don't get to pick which state laws we like and which ones we don't. We're not at the top of the heap. The state's here, we're here. And when the state says this is what the law is, we have to follow state law. What we can do, though, is we're also, and I think I see a couple of them, there are representatives here from our state representatives' offices. They're the ones that can actually make a significant impact by us getting legislation that would change some of these rules that would allow them the teeth in the enforcement to go out and do something. Our county public health, they don't like going and seeing a situation like they're looking at. But they also know if they try to find the person, they're going to disappear tomorrow. So it's a game of cat and mouse. And so I hope you understand that, first off, I just want to thank you two, because this is not something we normally deal with at SBCAG. This is transportation group. We deal with roads and traffic and freeways and those kinds of things. So that was kind of my question leaving this meeting is, I understand the desire to address this issue. This is obviously an injustice. It needs to be rectified. I'm not sure this is this is basically our only place where we cross jurisdictional lines and we all get to meet. So I understand why we brought it here. But I'm really interested in how do we move this from this position where we hear all these folks to action. I don't know if that's going to be a joint letter from all of us to our state representatives. What actually is the action item that we can take that folks can hold us accountable to as well. So I guess we'll hear about that more. So Director Patino.
Yes, Director Hartman and Director Rouse, thank you so much for bringing this. I have come before the Board of Supervisors 2 different times on this issue because people in the city of Santa Maria have been concerned about it, and especially on the micro kitchens. And I felt like it wasn't like a big concern, but I was told that these were entrepreneurs, and I did not agree with that. I being in business myself, I know how that can affect any brick and mortar business. And so I think, we can sit here and say thank you very much, and I do thank all of you for being here today. But in the city of Santa Maria, seeing the crowd I have here today, I would certainly invite you to City Hall, and we figure out what we want done, because after this, because you've come here and you've spoken to all of us, and it's important that everybody hear it, and then figure out what we want to be done, what we want done, and take it to our assembly person, because this does not work in Santa Maria. This does not work for any of you. And I think that's what's important to do. If we break up into, say, the city of Santa Maria, the city of Santa Barbara, come up with the ideas that you have. We'll put it together, because I don't want to write just one letter and send it up to Sacramento and hope that something happens. I think we have to be organized. We figure out what we want done, and then put a group, say, in the San Ynez Valley together. And Director Hartman, you could do that. And then figure out what we want done. Have our assemblyman meet with us. He does come here periodically. We can meet with him here. We don't have to go all the way up to Sacramento. And let him know what we need and what we need to have done. And so if you agree to meet with me, I think that would be great. I think to our code and compliance officer there, Ms. Palacios, I wish you had brought the slide that said, sorry, that showed the fruit vendors, the fruit cart vendors. When our code compliance went into the backyard of where one of these cart vendors lived, they found the fruit and it was full of maggots. Mm-hmm. These fruit vendors you see on the corner have no place to wash their hands. They have no restrooms. They can't keep anything clean. And it bothers me as to what people are buying and what they're ingesting. I've had complaints that some of these vendors are near the schools, so that when kids get out of school, they're buying some of these things. And I've had complaints about that. So we get these complaints. I turn them over to code compliance. Most of the time, we don't work on the weekends. That's a problem, because they're all out on the weekends. And then I'm thinking of one time, and I'm sure I called code compliance. We had a young mother pushing one of these carts around town, and she had a toddler with her. Now, you know good and well she's being trafficked, and that really bothers me. I can't imagine being a young mother and having a toddler with you. So I think we have a lot that needs to be done, not just specific to food vending, but everything else. We have flower vendors coming to Santa Maria. We have done something about that to get them out, but they just go out into the other streets. They're out maybe on Depot, or they're out on Donovan. So we have all of your names. I will certainly notify all of you, and we can call a meeting, and we can put together what we think needs to be done in Santa Maria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Nelson, do you?
Yes. Thank you, Chair Rouse. First of all, I really appreciate, again, this venue. I don't think we take advantage of this enough, to be honest, to talk about regional issues. There's other ones, and we try to do it through other committees, Elected Leaders Forum and others. I really think this is a great opportunity to do that, and I want to thank Director Kern for taking that up, and as well as the staff, or Director Hartman and Rouse, and the City of Santa Maria for their participation, because these are regional issues that are tough to tackle. I wanted to address a couple of comments that were made by public comment. One about things that we vote on our ballot versus what gets voted on by legislators. So we elect people who then vote, and then the governor signs those bills. So there's a little bit of difference there between those two things. So this is a lawful law that came from Sacramento. It's not something we got to vote on directly. We're not a democracy. We're a democratic republic. So we get to have these representatives that do these types of things. So that's where this law is coming from. That said, I looked it up, and it was our local legislators that actually voted for some of these laws too. So, your voice going back up to our local legislators and talking to them about why did they support these, why did they not consult with us would be really important. The other one, Efren's, one of my favorite restaurants. I love your carne asada burrito. I just wanted to talk about, how you were conflicted about, how this impacted your dad. He started off as on the food cart, and then now you guys have a restaurant. And you guys are really living the American dream. That's why we support things like the micro home kitchens. That's why we support lawful food carts. There's a process, and we're trying to create low barriers of entry so people can move up the ladder, because it is really hard on day one to get to a brick and mortar. And so we want to create those stepping stones. But what we're seeing here is that people are not even taking advantage of those stepping stones, right? They're not even following the lawful process to get the help that they need so they can learn and they can build their business and eventually have a brick and mortar location, which should be the goal for all these businesses. So, what we see here, I think, is lawlessness, and it leads to chaos. This is the same thing we have happening with our homeless issue throughout our community, is that we've turned a blind eye to some of these things, and it continues to get worse and worse and worse, and we don't address them. To me, I don't think we need to go to Sacramento here. It's clear that people are not following the law, and so we need to empower our enforcement arms, whether it's our code enforcement, it's public health, and fund them appropriately to do what they need to do and empower them to go ahead and follow those misdemeanor filings. And then I really think we need to be looking at confiscation of product and equipment. You confiscate the product, they're not going to be able to come back in 2 hours. And we already know it's unhealthy, so I don't know why we're turning a blind eye and walking away from that. That's ridiculous. If you confiscate their cooking material, that's going to get really expensive really quick and really old. And I don't know why we can't, rent a few freezer trucks for a few months. And, the word will get out there. If we go hard and heavy, it will send a message. If we go ahead and rent some storage yards for some of this equipment or a storage unit, I think between all of our jurisdictions, we can fund that. I don't know why we don't. I would love to stick general fund money if all the other jurisdictions would do the same thing. If we all partner together to fund public health on this, I think we can get something done, and I think we can get it done soon. We don't have to wait for Sacramento to solve these problems for us. We have existing laws. No, we have existing laws to do it. So let's join our forces. Maybe this should be direction to our CEOs and our city managers that you guys get around, you guys come up with a plan. We're all going to support you at our city councils and move this forward and fund this, making sure that the right enforcement teams are out there so that we can actually get something done here. It is a public safety issue. It's unfair business practices, and it's completely unacceptable. And I think that the political momentum is there, and I really appreciate all the comments and my colleagues for their leadership on bringing this forward to the public.
Thank you. Director Infante.
Thank you very much. A couple of things. I agree with everything that's been said, and I love the fact that the business owners have come here to tell us what's going on. But what I just heard Director Nelson talk about is going to take some time. It's going to take some funds. Fine, we can get to that, and I agree with that completely. I'm the mayor in Solvang. We don't have quite the problem you've got in Santa Maria or in some of the other areas, but we do have the issue, the big one that you saw on the screen there. One of the things we can do today, we've got the news media here. Why aren't we telling the residents of all of our communities that it's unsafe to go to these places so we get rid of their revenue stream? They're not going to hang around if they can't sell anything. So let's start, and all of you are involved, talking to the community. Let's get some newspaper reporting. Let's get something out there that says it's unhealthy. We don't know what you're going to be eating if you buy from these vendors. And let's start the process there, and then we'll have the time to get the other things done that you were talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Julian.
Yes, thank you for sharing this opportunity for us to discuss. I'm in Guadalupe. We have at least 12 family-owned restaurants, and they're mom-and-pop restaurants. They're the owners of the buildings. The workers are the mom-and-pops that thrive on their businesses. If you go into Guadalupe, there's 3 ways in, and every corner of Guadalupe that you can get into, there's a vendor. And that stops those individuals from basically going to the local restaurants, that again, the brick and mortar restaurants. So I think that that this effort, as far as the city of Guadalupe is concerned, they cannot survive if we don't move on this item in terms of protecting those local businesses. So I appreciate those restaurants that are here today to speak on this issue, and I think from the city of Guadalupe, we're going to do what we can to make sure that our local businesses are protected. So, thank you.
Thank you. Director Hartman.
Well, again, thank you, Director Kern and SBCAG, for allowing us to use this forum, and thank you again to everyone who's come out. I see kind of a 3-part strategy here. The first, I think, is a joint letter to the legislature. They had good intentions, but I think they're hurting the very people that they wanted to help, at least in our communities, and we need to make that clear. The problem with it's very difficult without misdemeanor enforcement capability under our health laws to issue notices of violation to somebody from out of town and actually enforce it. So we can use misdemeanor in our fire code and other things, and we'll try to do that. But I think we need to tell the legislature, you did a good job with microenterprise home kitchens. You did a good job with food trucks. You did a good job with brick and mortar, and you need to put that misdemeanor authority back in. That is what I think we should say in the letter. I'm not quite sure. We'll try to figure out how we organize, but I think having it from the 8 cities and the county would be very effective. So the second strategy is to publicize. We need people to understand this is unfair competition. This is unsafe. The labor is not treated well and is really problematic. People should not patronize these businesses. I've written op-eds. I'm writing another, so has Mayor Rouse. So we all need to do what we can to reach out to people so that we can turn the public tide. Because in the city of Santa Barbara, they go to enforce and they have patrons not understanding, and it can escalate. And so we all need to do what we can to help people understand all the issues associated with these unlawful vending. The third thing is I think we need to create a multi-jurisdictional task force. And I see, we've had the director of the county environmental health. We have our undersheriff in the back. Thank you, Undersheriff Bonner, for being here. We have fire listening in online. So we have our county departments understanding, hearing, ready to go. But we need to work with the cities, and because it's whack-a-mole, and they move. If push them out of Santa Barbara, they're up to the San Ynez Valley. Push them there, they're up to Santa Maria. So we need to have something coordinated, and I think if we work hard with we can have some sting operations. What we learned, we had a little meeting before this so that we could coordinate to some extent, and we learned a couple of things. And one is that there's a very few, from Santa Barbara's experience, a very few operators in the LA area who are sending all these out. So if we can trace it back and get evidence and get those people, hold them accountable, that's really important. And Director Seifert, you told a story about a cart operator as you opened your remarks for our initial meeting, and I thought that was a very compelling story. And I think the legislature should hear this.
Yeah, thank you, Director Hartman. The intent of this bill was obviously to create opportunities for those to start a business and to do it in a way that's safe. We had a situation in Santa Barbara where this gentleman, I won't include the name at this point in time, but they reached out to my staff, and basically they were working through the process and trying to get permitted for a mobile push cart. In doing so, they basically, he and his wife, they were out on a corner, they were trying to sell food, and they were trying to go through the permitting process. They were working with us closely. They were local residents, and they were approached by unpermitted food vendors from what they said was Los Angeles. They came up to the exact same location. They were told to leave by the unpermitted food vendors because they were told that that corner was their corner. The unpermitted food vendors from Los Angeles used intimidation tactics and told them that they were going to call some people and have them removed. They set up right next to them and started dumping grease and trash in their direction and essentially forced them to move out. And this gentleman and his wife quit the business. They didn't pursue their permit. They didn't pursue their business. They decided that this was not something that was feasible or for them because of what they experienced. And it was really kind of heartbreaking for my staff walking through that process to try to help somebody that needed that income and that business to lawfully do it. And they were chased out.
So they're hurting our local businesses, and I just want to emphasize what I heard Director Merau say: 20 to 30% when they set up right across. That's the loss that brick and mortar operations are facing. Restaurants don't make that; they don't have that kind of margin. So we're going to lose the very people we heard talk today. This is what we want to see. I'll state the obvious. Many of you who spoke today are Latino. You're the people who the legislation really wanted to help, and it's hurting. It's hurting badly. And so we need to take that message to our legislature and make that clear that the entrepreneurs that we want to help are being hurt. And so, three-part strategy: the letter to the legislature, publicize all of us in any way that we can. I'm ready to go with little flyers and hand them out to people at these stands with a little set of talking points. I could use some help, though. And then we'll work on creating a task force. As you've heard, this is very labor intensive to enforce, very expensive. And I think the only way we're going to do it is if we get together cross jurisdiction, because the county of Ventura has had to spend, I think, over $1 million, and they're still having, they still haven't fully wrestled it to the ground. So we need to coordinate. So again, thank you everyone for being here, from the county especially, and thank you Gina Fisher, who put a lot of effort in pulling all this together, and thank you to my colleagues for understanding how significant what people thought wasn't that significant an issue. It really is.
Thank you, Director Harmon. Director Patino.
I had a couple of more comments. We're finding the vendors that are coming up to Santa Maria are from the San Fernando Valley. So, and another issue that was not mentioned is a lot of the trucks, the vending trucks, also dump their grease in the at the car washes, and the car washes themselves have to go through all kinds of stuff with what they have to be. Every 6 months they have to get that checked or something, whatever the residue is. And so you've got these trucks that are dumping their grease there. So that, I mean, this really gets amplified when you start looking at it all. Thank you.
Mr. King, you and Director King.
Yes, not only am I a director here, but I'm the mayor of Buellton. And after 946 passed, I started seeing all these vendors started to come out on the streets, the flower vendors, the taco trucks, the fruit stands, and all this. And it was very frustrating to me, because all you people that have businesses, we require you to have licenses, we require you to have health certificates if you're serving food, and all these people on the street have to do none of this. So I've been pounding my fist on the table saying, why are we not doing something about this? How is this fair to our business people when you took 2 years? Cal Taco in my town, many of you maybe have been there, spent about 2 years remodeling the building. It was an empty building, remodeling that building. They got all the permits, everything they needed to do. And then after this 946 passed, people across the street at nighttime, while they're still open, are selling tacos and burritos across the street with open flames. Now people say, oh, okay, open flame. Well, it's hard for the fire marshal is the one that is the individual that is responsible for enforcing that. He's down in Santa Barbara. I mean, if I call him, is he going to come out in the middle of the night? Probably not, okay? Not only being unfair to all these people, but they are creating a hazard on my street. They block the streets. You can't walk any farther than where they are blocking the entire streets. Out in Santa Ynez, they're on the side of the shoulder, like this dirt that was brought in. This is what they're doing to my dirt, which stinks in my valley. And so I went to a meeting up in Sacramento, and I went to our senator, and I said, hey, we're having an issue with this. We're having an issue that is not fair to our business owners. It's unhealthy. It's unsafe. They're not paying any taxes. They're not paying their employees a fair wage. And I've been told by my law enforcement some of these are trafficking and money laundering. So they're committing more than one crime. So I went to our senator and I said, hey, excuse me, I said, we have an issue with this. And she said to me that, yes, we realize that. I've had other cities tell me this in my jurisdiction, but we're looking to you local leaders to solve this problem. I agree with Joan that we should put together a task force, and all of us could probably pool money enough to go out and do stings, take these people's property, put it away again and again and again and again if we have to get them to know that Santa Barbara County is not open for business. And yeah. And I'm sitting here listening to this when I'm up in her office, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm just a dumb cop, ex-cop, and I'm thinking to myself, nobody took into consideration the unintended consequences and the sacrifice that our business owners are having to do for these people undercutting them out on the sidewalks of our streets. Why don't you just repeal the law?
All right, well, thank you, Director King. And I want to thank everybody that came and talked today. Like I said, I was in the business myself for 40 years. I understand it. Please know you're being heard by this board. Please know that we're frustrated too. And I would encourage everyone and anyone to contact also your state representatives. Do it in English or in Spanish. It really doesn't matter. It still counts. And these people need to know exactly what you're going through and how you feel. Sometimes your voice is louder than ours. Matter of fact, it really is louder than ours. So I appreciate you doing it. As far as, there's not an action item per se, but Director Hartman's suggestion, I believe, is something that we probably all agree with in terms of, okay, so.
Before we go, there is someone, Andrew Firestone, with his hand raised.
I'm sorry,
on
Mike?
Zoom. Are you still on?
Sure, go right ahead.
Mr. Firestone, go ahead and speak.
Hi there, can you hear me out there?
We can.
Very good. My name is Andrew Firestone. I'm a business owner in Santa Barbara County, including a couple of restaurants, and I hear a lot of what's going on. I share that frustration. I think immediately what people think, though, is that we just think we don't like competition. And obviously that's not the case. There's a lot of other issues at hand here. And two of the things that I really want to highlight beyond just the unfair business practice is, one, the environmental impact that has been talked about before in this meeting, and the dumping of grease into drains, storm drains, public drains, and where that ends up, which is our watershed. Santa Barbara County and the Central Coast has always been incredible stewards of our environment. It's what brings so many tourists and visitors, and what makes life on the Central Coast so livable is that we respect our environment and we take care of it. People that come in from out of town to dump their grease, to throw their trash on the ground, to use the environment as bathrooms are not respecting it. The second thing that I also want to highlight is the fact that these places that get set up on our sidewalks are not respecting our ADA pathways and are making it impossible for people with movement disabilities to be able to access paths of egress, which is straight up illegal. And if restaurants here, if they wanted to go set up tables and chairs on the sidewalk, they would get removed for no other reason than it is illegal to impede the pathway for ADA rules and restrictions. So these are two areas, environmental and ADA, that I think need to be addressed because that is illegal. It is places that we spend an incredible amount of time and resource. And if we have a partnership with our environmental partners, whether that is Heal the Ocean, whether that is the Creeks Department of Santa Barbara County, whether that is Surfrider, Channel Keeper, I think that we can make some incredible progress because this is what they do. They protect our environment. Secondly, and I know I'm rambling here, but secondly is to engage the state in terms of our ADA access and those advocates to make sure that everybody has a safe and legal way to make their way down a sidewalk. And if someone's impeding that, that is illegal. And that is not a county thing, that's not a city thing, that's just a human rights thing. So thank you for all the work you're doing. I know you're listening to what we're saying. I know you're frustrated as we are, and I thank you for your advocacy.
Thank you, Mr. Firestone. Santa Barbara, do you have a comment to directors down there?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Rouse. And I just wanted to speak up. I appreciate this conversation. I can sense, even though not being in the room, the level of concern. I've learned a lot, and I support Director Hartman's suggestion of a task force. And I also just want to echo one of the comments that she made about the intention behind the state law was to provide the economic opportunities that so many people are doing lawfully, doing with permits. And I just want to make that point because, again, people are struggling economically. And if this reality, as I'm learning a lot right now, is actually hurting those who are doing it by the books, that's a deep concern to me. But I don't want to lose sight. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this is an important economic pathway for so many entrepreneurs in the business of providing food and serving some needs. You see it, some needs as people are laborers are going to work early in the morning. And so, again, I want to really support those in our county who are doing this lawfully. And if the task force can strike that balance, that's the challenge, I believe. And I appreciate the speakers who spoke to that point. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Anyone else in Santa Barbara? I think you're it.
Yes,
okay.
This is Director Perotti. Thank you. Thank you so much. Here I am. Thank you so much, Director Rouse and Director Hartman, for bringing this to our attention, and all the speakers. Although the city of Goleta has not had very many food vendors, that doesn't mean we're not going to. So I support all the suggestions that have been made. I like the idea of the letter to our legislators, making sure they hear us. Education to the public and the multi-regional task force. I feel that when we've worked together regionally on concerns, we get things done. So I support all those requests and suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Perotti. And with that, unless somebody else has a comment, I think we can probably close this item and move on. Thank you all very much. And we'll go to item back up to 5A. If you want to read that into the record, please.
Certainly. 5A, Highway 101 Corridor SB1 Cycle 1 Project Delivery Update. Receive a report and presentation on the delivery status of the projects in the Highway 101 corridor funded in SB1 Cycle 1.
Thank you. Mr. Luna. Okay. As you leave, if you could try to be as quiet as possible, please, because we're still trying to conduct the meeting. So thank you so much.
Okay, I will work through this as quickly as I can. Today we're here to give a status report on projects in the Highway 101 corridor that were funded under Senate Bill 1. As many of you know, that Senate Bill 1 was passed in 2017, and SBCAG and Caltrans were immediately in a position to take advantage of that legislation and apply for projects to get funded. And we were successful in 2018. Today, you're going to hear an update on those projects that were funded in what we call Cycle 1. That was came with some requirements for delivery, and so I'll be addressing those projects and then how we have met our delivery requirements, which means basically that included reporting to the California Transportation Commission, partnerships with Caltrans, and then moving forward with the actual construction. So this slide you've seen before. So in Cycle 1, just focus on the right-hand side of this figure. The dark gray, the orange, and the purple segments were the Highway 101 segments that were funded in Cycle 1. That included about 7 miles of Highway 101, but there were a number of other parallel projects that were included in the in that package that was funded. The specifics related to the Cycle 1 awards was, as I mentioned before, 7 miles of HOV lanes covering 3 segments, Carpinteria, Padaro, and the Summerlin segments, a total of $153 million from SB1 funding from 2 specific discretionary programs, the Solutions for Congested Corridors, and then the Trade Corridors program. And then there were 5 other parallel projects that were improved. That included $30 million in total funds, and they're listed there. I won't read them, but I have a slide on each of those. The highway segments, just to indicate that how we were able to meet our delivery requirements, those finish on or ahead of schedule and then on budget. So we had strict budget requirements. There was no latitude for cost increases under the Senate Bill 1 funds, so we were able to meet that. In part, that was due to our delivery requirement for construction management general contractor. We had brought, Caltrans had brought Granite Construction on board early to do constructability reviews, and we were able to stay within that scope and budget. As I mentioned before, our partnership with Caltrans was paramount to the success of this delivery. On the 101 projects, Caltrans reported directly to the CTC for those projects, and then the SBCAG staff reported on the parallel projects in conjunction with some of our local agency partners. And then, as I mentioned before, we worked within the available funding. In some particular cases, we had the ability to move some funding around and still stay within budget. And that was through the success of Sarkis's group, where we were able to meet with and bring issues where maybe there were cost increases, and we were able to shift money from one project to another and still stay within our overall corridor programming. So the last piece of the Highway 101 segment is the middle segment we call Highway 101 Padaro. This is where this will complete the first 7 miles. What you're seeing here is right before the concrete was being laid in the northbound direction. Now it's all finished and ready for opening of the HOV lanes. The next update I'll go through is some of the parallel projects. So one of the first ones was in the city of Carpinteria. This was an important intersection. It was a mitigation project to install a traffic signal at the northbound ramps of Villa Real and Santa Monica intersection. This was one of the first projects that was done. It was done at the same time the Carpinteria segment was completed, and so now it's operational and performing very well. And then many of you were at the Santa Claus Lane Bikeway event. This was an important transformative regional bikeway project that paralleled on the coast side of the Padaro segment, and that was completed providing that link between Carpinteria and Santa Claus Lane. And a lot of this information is on our website, so we've been keeping the information up, and you can see that we've highlighted that those projects are completed. And then the North Padaro project was a county project, and the next few are county projects. This was a smaller project. It provided equestrian benefits and pedestrian access to Loon Point and coastal access. And then there's 2 other projects in the community of Summerlin. I have 2 separate slides on that. What you're seeing here is a rendering of a project that's going to start construction fairly soon. And we just met our delivery requirements with working with County of Santa Barbara Public Works. This will add coastal parking along Wallace Avenue near Lookout Park. You see there's improved access into Lookout Park, some improved pedestrian facilities with crosswalks and bike lanes in this area. And then the second improvement is on the other side of Summerlin, on the coast side, added bike lanes, adding a sidewalk that helps complete that connection from what's called Greenwell Avenue, where there was a sidewalk just terminated, all the way to Padaro Lane, and then connecting back to Loon Point. And then what you're seeing here is bike lanes on either side. And then out of this picture, there's also equestrian improvements for those people that want to take their horses down to the beach as well. That's an important part of that project. And then the last parallel project I wanted to highlight today was a project also that was the final project we were able to deliver in partnership with the County of Santa Barbara Public Works, is the Santa Claus Lane Streetscape project. This project's actually been phased, and so the SB1 requirement was, you can see on the left-hand side here, was to create that additional Class 1 bikeway from Santa Claus, where the Santa Claus Lane bikeway terminated, all the way to Padaro Lane. So that creates another about 0.6 miles of Class 1 bikeway facility. There's also coastal parking in this area, and ultimately, as part of a Phase 2 project, there will be a railroad grade crossing improvements to help for the coastal access. And I just wanted to highlight, and this is my last slide, is that we have some upcoming milestone events based on having met our requirements under Senate Bill 1. In February of 25, we're planning a milestone celebration, specifics still to come, related to opening up the Highway 101 for 7 miles. You'll see that in the next month or so, perhaps even as early as Thanksgiving, that the lanes will be open, but then we'll have a milestone event in 2025. So there'll be dramatic changes in the corridor as we finish the Highway 101 there in that area. And then the Santa Claus Lane Streetscape project, like I mentioned before, that will start, the county has indicated, in November of this year. And then construction will also start on those Summerlin projects as indicated on the slide. And I'd be happy to address any questions. I know we're out of time, but.
Yeah, any questions for Mr. Luna? Director Nelson.
Yes, just a quick comment about these projects and especially the parallel projects. You know, everybody on this board always hears me as a broken record talking about North County projects in relation to the Highway 101 widening. But sometimes we get new members on here that haven't been here the whole time. And even though I might be one of the younger guys, I've been here a while. And when the 101 project started off, it was not fully contemplated that all these parallel projects that were added cost to what we're doing now. And so I just bring that up just to say that, you know, they were part of the EIR, and so there are things that we've continued to fund, but it has been sucking all the regional dollars from Santa Barbara County to this project and has benefited those jurisdictions that have been adjacent to the 101 widening disproportionately than the rest of the county. When we, early on in Measure A, when we had the Santa Maria River Bridge, we had the UVP, we had 246 widening, we didn't have parallel projects for those types of projects. And I just want to keep that on everybody's radar as we keep moving this conversation forward. Fully committed, not trying to submarine the widening project down south, but I just want to make sure that we keep in mind that when we progress to the next phases of Measure A, when we have other projects in Lompoc and in Santa Maria and in the Valley, that we keep that in mind, that we can have the same type of generosity regionally with these other projects. I think it's really important that I keep that narrative alive, and that's why I keep bringing it up, because I know that sometimes as this board cycles, right, that some of those things get lost, and I just don't want to make sure that it gets lost as we eventually get to that moment when we get to celebrate the finishing of that project and get to look towards the future of our county. So thank you.
Any further questions from directors in Santa Barbara?
No questions from Santa Barbara.
Okay, I see no public comment here. Public comment in Santa Barbara?
No public comment in Santa Barbara.
Very good. And with that, we can close that. That was just an informational item. Move
Yes,
on
it was.
to item 6.
Yes. Mr. Chairperson, members of the board, I'm excited to share that our region has been awarded funding from the California Transportation Agency from the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, or what we call TIRCEP funding. As you recall, we submitted a joint application for the entire region using 125, SB 125 funding as leverage, and it's paid off. It's paid off big time. We are awarded $51 million countywide. This application included funding for transit facilities for the city of Lompoc, Santa Maria, Santa Barbara, along with purchasing 23 electric buses for Colt, Smart, and MTD, and Clean Air Express. So this is huge for our region, and it's a big win. And I really need to thank the board for supporting us in submitting this grant application, because normally we would just submit it individually and we compete with each other, and we'd have winners or losers. And this way we brought it all together, and it really paid off. So I'm really proud of our region, and I think, we've heard earlier today that we've shown when we work regionally, we can be very successful. So I think this is a testament of that as well. This will also fund, bus rapid transit in the city of Santa Maria. High quality bus transit-based public transit system featuring dedicated bus lanes, level boarding stations is signal priority, and modern buses along the State Route 135 and Broadway, the city's most congested corridor. So this will be a new thing for our county as well, this bus rapid transit. So it's really great that the city of Santa Maria is stepping up and making that happen. When I called the transit manager about this award, he goes, "Oh boy, now I got work to do." So yeah, it will be a big job, but I'm sure that they're capable of making that happen. And it will also fund contactless integrated fare system countywide, so people can tap to ride and make riding transit that much more convenient, so you don't have to worry about the fare and making that happen. So I think that's a great way to make transit seamless and easier to use. Then also, in addition to that grant application, we also partnered with the Central Coast Coalition, with the Coast Rail Coordinating Council, I think Director King is a member of that organization on behalf of SBCAG, correct? Yeah. Both of you, yeah. And it was managed by the San Luis Obispo Council of Governments. We submitted an application that included that was funded for $22 million for the Ortega rail siding project. This will be basically a passing lane for the rail system, so they can add more service on this rail line on the Union Pacific Railroad. So this will allow for a 7th round trip to San Luis Obispo down south to LA. So this is another major accomplishment for the region to expand our rail capabilities and what we're doing there. So again, we're thankful for the collaboration and the local support of our local and regional partners, and seeing over $70 million coming into our region because of that effort. I also want to thank my staff. Sarkis and Maya were leaders in making all this happen. It's not easy getting everybody to agree on things and cooperate sometimes, but they were able to accomplish that, and it shows, and I'm really proud of what we're able to accomplish there. Thank you. And then more information, all the details will be shared at a future meeting. And last but not least, I also have to congratulate Michael Becker. He had his 10-year anniversary with SBCAG, and we had an interview for him. And I put it in the last Friday update. I really want to encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. I teared up, so I'll just leave it at that. So I'm tearing up now. So thank you. I'll hand it back over to the chair.
All right, very good. Any questions or emotional outbursts from our directors here? Any questions to Santa Barbara?
No questions.
Okay, with
from
that,
Santa
move
Barbara.
on. Thank you. Move on to the Caltrans Director's Report.
Yes,
Do
thank
we
you,
have
Margie.
a
That's going to
Caltrans
be, yes, Veronica here. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Rouse, directors, members of the public, Veronica Lizama on behalf of Caltrans District Director Scott Eads. I do have a few items to report on this afternoon. First, on the maintenance side of the house, Caltrans will be installing a temporary traffic signal at Roblar and State Route 154 in the next 4 to 5 weeks. We are coordinating with PG&E to obtain temporary power for that signal, which will remain in place until the summer of 2025, when the baseline intersection becomes open to the general public. Secondly, work continues on the US 101 bridge replacement near the Refugio State Beach with an overnight closure until early November of the northbound 101 lane. Next week, Caltrans will also be temporarily closing the US 101 southbound Castillo Street ramp to perform some restriping work. The off-ramp will be closed on October 29th and 30th between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. And under our community engagement, Caltrans will be hosting a virtual public meeting on November 13th on the Santa Barbara Highway 101 pavement project that proposes to rehab 10 miles of highway just south of the Millbus Street undercrossing to Fairview Avenue undercrossing. And of course, we encourage members of the public to attend that public meeting and learn more about that project. And lastly, Caltrans is hosting a virtual workshop on its sustainable transportation grant program on October 29th from 9:30 to 11 a.m. This year, the district is hosting office hours in order to provide some additional support to our partner agencies during the grant application process. And following this meeting, we will be sharing more information on all of the items that I covered for the director's reference. And at this time, that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Questions from directors? Questions? Director Hartman.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Caltrans for the public meeting that they held in Los Olivos on Fox and Canyon, and where you also heard a fair bit about the stop sign at Roblar, and thank you for being so responsive. I also hope you had an opportunity to listen about the roadside vending that's occurring, and we'll carry that back to Director Eads as well.
Will do. Thank you.
Very good. Further quick. And any questions from Santa Barbara?
No questions from Santa Barbara.
All right, thank you very much. We'll close that item and move on to the next one. Item 9, committee meetings, the CalVans board meeting, Director Nelson.
Yes, CalVans report. Just quickly, we have our annual stakeholders meeting. It's in person on November the 19th in Tulare. If anybody would be interested in getting more information about that, I can get that to you, or we can make sure it's available with the SBCAG newsletter. Also, one of the hot buttons with CalVans right now is that there is a set aside and proposition for electrification of CalVans vehicles. So there's about $15 million in the climate bond that would be associated with that. So for those of you that are examining whether you want to support that or not, that might be something that might entice people that are fans of CalVans as we try to bring the CalVans fleet into compliance with state regulations. So those are the current issues, and if there's anything else, I'm always available to speak CalVans.
Thank you. And do we have a LoSAN board report today?
Director Williams is not here, so no report. What was that? What was that? He was not in Santa Barbara. He was at another meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't present. He was, yeah.
Okay, we're good? Okay. We're good. I'll move on to 1 minute. 1 minute reports. Anybody? Director King.
Well, in my sphere, this would be our items that we'd like to see come back. And I know that we talked about this earlier, but I would like to have all of us have at least one letter written and we can all sign to send to the legislator about these issues that we're having. And then we can all sign it from the entire board.
Yeah, I think Ms. Early's already been at work on her end and start the wheels turning for Santa Barbara, so we will definitely be part of the effort. Anyone in Santa Barbara with a 1 minute report?
No reports from Santa Barbara.
Okay, so the next meeting is on November 21st, 2024, and with that, we are adjourned.